Shalom. Uh, all right. First and foremost, I want to begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rekha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and to the of the millstone. And enough respect to the brothers out there pushing and spreading the gospel of Yahweh Yahushua to the four of the world. Now, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Yahushua, this is the man of valor captain once again, right here in the highways and the byways, and spreading the gospel of Yahweh Yahushua to the four of the world. Letting you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and all those that share a bloodline and are scattered throughout the four corners of the world to know that you are the true biblical Israelites, the actual descendants, the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that it is high time for you to what? To repent, awaken, and make peace with the Heavenly Father, right? Because the days ahead, the days that are near, are what? Are days of darkness and gloominess. And that if you ain't, if you ain't getting right with the Most High, He's going to deliver you to these perils. And so this is the same message that we've been preaching day in and day out. But I wanted to focus on, Yahweh Shai's message, right? One of his final messages in the book of, I don't know if I should pick Mark, but let me see. We'll just go to Luke 21. Yeah, Luke 21 and 25, it says, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming with a cloud, in a cloud, with power and great glory." And this chapter that I'm reading, Luke the 21st chapter, goes hand in hand with the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter. When Yahweh Shah was asked, he talked about the earthquakes in diverse places and all these natural disasters that are going to be that are going to be intensified as we draw closer and closer to the last days. And I believe brothers have come up with this analogy of a woman, and the earth being a woman when she's about to give forth a baby, and I guess the earth about to give forth the kingdom of heaven, it'll have like contractions. So this is pretty much what we're noticing on the earth right now. All these natural disasters that are happening over there is pretty much the earth, which is likened unto a woman, right? Because it's a land that that bears children, right? And nations, and you can also like the trees, right? You plant a seed in it. So it's all likened unto a woman. And the contractions will be these things that we're seeing around the world right now. You know, you this year alone, I haven't really look at it, but it seems like every other month that I go on the breaking news app and I scan through all these articles, there's an earthquake somewhere somehow, or forest fire, or a tornado or something going on in some part of the world. And this is all prophesied in the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, and even the book of Luke, the 21st chapter. And so here it says what? Men's heart failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now we're not at that point yet, because if you know anything about the scriptures, you'll find out that there are certain things that has to come to pass until we see the Son of Man, crack open the skies and deliver us. Majority of these prophecies have already come to pass. One of them being, if you read the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, it tells you about the downfall of Jerusalem down there in 70 AD, right? When Vespasian came in and his son Titus, when they took down Jerusalem, and then they killed a lot of people actually. Some of them fled. They fled to Africa, interiors of Africa. They probably fled eastward. But all these nations, the prophecies about Israel being thrown down and going into the wilderness have come to pass, right? One specific one is the book of, let me see, is it, the book of Micah, the fourth chapter. I've brought this up a couple of times, but in the book of Micah, the fourth chapter, verse, right, verse 10, it says, "Be in pain and right and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city," right? And we're a nation that's pretty much going out in pain. Even from the time the Yahushua said, right, from the time of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, right? So our nation is the Lord is putting us, the entire nation, especially his men, right, through the fire, right? We are noticing, or we are being subjected to all the I guess the terribleness of this world, so that we will appreciate righteousness. So until the nation of Israel is actually established and be bearers of the name of the Lord, and be I guess heaven, right, on earth, we have to labor to bring forth. So it says here that like a woman in travail, for now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field. So the city again represents what, the Jerusalem, right, the southern kingdom during the Romans time. And then when they went forth out of the city, we were kicked out of the city. All right. And it says, "And thou shalt dwell in the fields." The fields represents what, the interiors of Africa, and that's where they went in. And then it says, "And thou shalt dwell, and thou and it's like it, and thou shalt go even to Babylon." And Babylon is America, so that's why the whole thing with the transatlantic slavery happened, right? So all these major prophecies come to pass. Notice it says what, "Be in pain and labor to bring forth." That was our pain. That was what we had to. That was the what was it? In the book of, I think, in the same book, in Micah the fourth chapter, it says, "I will bear the indignation," and even in the book of Baruch it says, "Suffer patiently the wrath of the Lord." And even the book of Job says, right, "Shall we receive good and not evil from the Lord?" So the harsh point of our history, we've gone through a huge chunk of it, and we're really at the end. At least for those who are righteous, we've got. I'll go as far as to say that we are not gonna have to go through, the things that we went back then. Our suffering has already ended because we're in Yahweh Shai. The only thing that we must go through is the martyrdom. But even that, the scripture says, "What, the Lord shall keep us in those days." And when you go into the book of Acts, right, you go into the Paul's writing, you go into the book of Revelations, the way the Lord kept his men was that he gave them the courage, and to a point where not even anything in this world could scare them. Whereas the people in this world, because they are, dwelling in the flesh, the things that come out is going to catch them in its most terribleness, right? In the point where they won't be able to endure. That's Jacob's trouble. So, um, um, Micah 4 and 10, it says, "Yeah, and thou shalt go even to Babylon." So it was actually, this took out a huge point of our history. That's why the scripture says what, we the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit is have to endure for a while, a short while, because what, we are nearly there. We are nearly at the end. So that's what it says, that we shall go forth out of the city, and we will dwell in the field, and then we will go even to Babylon, and there shall thou be delivered. There the Lord Yahweh shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. So this is pretty much what we're going through now. When you go into the book of when we go back into the book of Luke, the 21st chapter, verse 27, it says, "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." And that's why we expect Yahushua to come in this time, in this generation, in this kingdom. Because what? Because we have gone through everything that prophecy said we ought to go through. And the only thing left now is what? It's the MOTB, World War III, and then what? Yahushua coming on the scene. right? Because even when it talks about the deliverance in Babylon, when you read the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, it talks about, us coming out, right, through the Spirit, right? So we were quickened by the Spirit. The Spirit of the Lord entered into us, and we came forth as a great army. And when you read the book of Revelation, it talks about it too. That's right when we prophesy after three score and after 40 and 2 months, I believe, right? The Spirit of life from God entered into us, and then what? The nations began to be afraid, and this is it. This is the Spirit of God that's entered into us, right? And so a lot of things has really come to pass. That's why I want to focus on that part that talks about our redemption draweth nigh. So, and when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for for your redemption draweth nigh. That's why we've been seeing a lot of what news about the UFOs. There was a point in time, and even till now, right? There's a lot of video surfacing out, and even the government had to come out here and admit that there actually are, unidentified aerial phenomena going on out there. These are the angels of the Lord, right? And this is all to boost our faith. Because what it says in the book of Second Ezra is that the Lord was going to have it to where little snippets of a prophecy will happen in front of our eyes. He's not going to have it just. It's going to sneak up on the other nations, but for us, it's not going to sneak up on us. And the way He's going to do it is that He was going to give us what to look for, and then He was going to give us snippets of it before that actual day comes. And then when that day comes, we will be prepared enough to where we won't be caught up in that. Case in point with the MOTB, we know the technology already exists, right? We know the banking families are coming out here talking about how they need to reform the financial structure of America. We have all these things. We know how America is trying to be the head of the AI. We know how they're trying to change all their data centers and try to streamline, the records of the public. So they're putting all these things in place, and this is pretty much the Lord communicating with us. He's not doing it so the other nations can or the other non-believers out there can repent and do whatever they have to do. That's why the scripture says that what even though they see not, and when they hear, and even when we tell them, they hear not. It's really not for them, but it's for those who believe in Yahweh Bashim Yashai. That's wwhy He's doing all these things. So when you read the news and it talks about, for example, the first time America got into Iran and Israel Israel bombed Iran and America got involved. This was a sign of World War III. It wasn't really for the nations. It was really, He really did it for us. When treaty comes into play, and then they stop, and then they fight again, and then they go back and forth, and Russia does this and that. It's not really World War III, but it's what all the players that are meant to be in World War III. The Lord is showing us that they're already in a warlike mind state. So he's communicating and telling the servants, look, man, I'm actually doing what I said I was going to do. All you have to do is believe in me and keep doing that work. That's what motivates us to come in here day in and day out and constantly doing videos online, right? Because we know that the Lord is doing His part, and we want to do our part because everything that we are doing will magnify His name. Okay, so um, likewise, ye, when you see these things come to pass, know ye the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. So what are the things that are supposed to come into pass? Like I said, when you go up a few verses up, it talks about the siege of Jerusalem, right? We know these things has happened, right? He even talked about the Son of Man, like he was going to be as Jonah was in 3 days in the belly of the fish, so shall he be, right? These things have already come to pass. A lot of these prophecies come to pass. So when if you have like which is something that brothers should get in the habit of doing, whenever you can, right? Try to the best of your ability, sit down, get a notebook, and try to write out all the narrative of the scriptures, right? Try to write out the plan of the Lord to the best of your ability, and then you find out that it's all like you can have a check mark and these things will be happening. You can start putting precept, and this is pretty much how you get better with prophecy, right? Don't just read the scriptures and lock your mind off and move on. Like it's no. Try to understand where does this narrative fit in a grand scheme of things. When is this going to happen? If this, so try to always have a narrative in your notebook, because I have that too. And then whenever you read any breakdown for any prophet, even if though you have not gone through it, like Apostle Torah said, because you know other breakdowns, you can fit their narrative into where it fits in the grand scheme of things, and that's how you get better at it. Okay, so that's how you really understand the scriptures. It's called a script. If you watch a movie and all you know is one scene or a few scenes from the trailers, you don't really know anything about the movie. You have to know the movie from top to finish, the whole scenario. Find out which characters are involved. When are they gonna come in? Right? What are they gonna say? This, that, and the third. Know all these things, and then you can actually say that what I'm a fan of this movie. I know this movie, or I've watched this movie. Okay, so that's pretty much how we ought to be. Yeah, that's the whole point of being a scholar. The whole point of being a scholar isn't to go out there and be proud. It's so you understand the narrative of the Lord, right? You got people out there who, when they get the when they become scholars, they go out there, and they all they care about is the titles. But it's for you and for the sheep. It's so that you can grow and understand fully, and then you use that skill that you have, or whatever you have amassed, and you help another brother who is not on the same level as you, so you can pick him up, bring him up. And that's the whole point of being what? A disciple of the Lord, a scholar of the Lord. Okay? So so it says here that when you see these things, right? Salakia 28. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. So a lot of these prophecies have already come to pass. We're living in the last days, man. This ministry, this gospel, has never been much more, I guess, serious, right? Since it first started, because there were a lot of things that was ought to come to pass, man. You had to look for the what do you call it? Actually, no, I'll go on to say that it's been serious for a very long time. Okay, because even if you consider the prophets back then, they would prophesy of the last days, and then, for example, yeah, Hoshia's prophecy about the siege of Jerusalem. It tells you that you had Christians, those who believe in Yahushua, they actually fled and they were good. But you have those that did not believe in Yahushua, like the Zealots. They thought they were going to do what the Maccabees did, and then they were going to free Israel from the clutches of the Roman Empire. But what happened? They got slaughtered. Okay, so the prophecy of the Lord, at any point at which he gave it, it was relevant for that point to be given, right? Especially for us. That's why it says, when you read the book of Second Ezra, I guess the ninth chapter, if I'm not mistaken, it tells you how this time in these last days, the Lord is not gonna be merciful, or he's not gonna be lenient in his salvation, because the prophecies were given. Like if you live in a time of if you live in ancient days, you didn't have a lot of things to reference. But we're living in our days where you have books from all these prophets that ever existed, even from the time of Enoch. It tells you what Enoch did. You have all these books. You have it readily available. You have it on the phone. You can simply just type in whatever you remember and go through it. But then you don't do it. You've had a whole lifetime, whole generations. So you don't go into it. Then you can't come up to the Lord in that day, and then try to act like you didn't know, or you can come up with an excuse with the Lord. You can't. That's why he told Ezra that no one, like the righteous, can't pray for the wicked anymore. He's not going to save the wicked with the righteous. He's not going to be lenient with salvation. Only those who are truly down for this, that's who he's coming for. All right. So let me see. Of course, we're going to go begin with the book of Deuteronomy. All right. So this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 1. It says, "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh, thy God, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord Yahweh thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth," right? And that's what I'm going to be going through, is the blessing, because we've got the curses. We've gone through it. We know how serious the Lord is. But now it's time for us to go through what the blessings. "And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy God. Blessed shall thou be in the city, and blessed shall thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase, right, of thy kin, and the flock of thy what? Of thy sheep. In fact, there's a precept for this in the book of Hosea. Let's see. Oh, in the book of Amos. So the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 11, it says, "In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old." So the tabernacle of David is another way of saying what? The third temple, right? And or just the elect, those that are in the spirit of the house of David. Okay, that they may possess the remnant, because the word house of David just represents rulership, right? It represents authority, right? And being on the side of the Lord, or being on forces in the name of the Lord on earth. That's what the house of David really was. They were the head of the kingdom of a righteous nation on earth, beginning with David, Solomon, right, and eventually kind of trickled down from there, and then look at where we are now. But the house of David is what it represents. Okay, and so when you read, pretty much when you read the scriptures, it talks about, especially in the New Testament, it talks about how we shall be made what? Kings and priests. And even in the book of Revelation, it talks about how watch and make sure that no man takes your crown from you. So all or even in the book of Psalms, the 45th chapter, it talks about the king's daughters, and we will be the king's daughters, right? In the sense of like royalty, and a nation be likened unto a woman. And so when you consider all these things, you see how royalty, it'll liken into what? The house of David, which is also what, I guess, a royal household. So spiritually, that's pretty much what it's talking about. Those that believe in Yahweh Hashem Yahshai. And so he was going to raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. Well, and another point too that I wanted to make up is that, I wanted to bring out is, when you even actually go into the history of the house of David in the book of Second Samuel, right, in the book of Kings, it tells you that there were some people who actually weren't really true descendants or from the bloodline of David, but they were of the house of David. Even Jonathan, who was of the house of Saul, really was of the house of David. Why? Because what? He was like-minded, right? He was one with David, okay, and his son. And even you have Eliakim, who was given the keys to the house of David in the book of Isaiah. I forgot the chapter. But so you see how the house of David is not really limited to like the actual true bloodline or the seed of David. So it pretty much encompasses anyone who is righteous and has been given authority. All right. And so it says, he will close up the breaches thereof. And the breaches pretty much meaning, anything that's broken or cracked, he's gonna repair us. Because we still have that spirit of the house of David, but what has made us broken is this bodies, this weakness. The fact that we've been subjected under these nations. That's why even David in the Psalms 18th chapter, he said it, that my enemies are too strong for me. The house of no one was too strong for the house of David. And so the breaches that the Lord is about to close off is what? Is us being changed and given that glory. All right. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and all the heathens which are called by my name, saith the Lord Yahweh, that doeth this. So this never happened. Okay. And all the heathens which are called by my name, saith the Lord Yahweh, that doeth this. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of him, Salakia. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth the seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. Now, when you read this, right, there are many different angles to look at this, but contextually, this talk, the angle that I want to look at it from is contextually which is when it talks about the plowman overtaking the reaper. It's kind of like how, if this whole field was like, your personal property, and you have your servants plowing, you would have, there would be a time where you would just like plow the field, and then you actually plant the seed, and then you will wait for harvest, and then you will reap the harvest. So what the scripture is pretty much saying is that you would have a field that's plowed, and then you plant, and then it'll grow, and you have a lot of food, to the point where during the harvest, before you can even harvest the entire field, the season will go and come around, and then it'll be time for the plowman to come in and plow the field, and then he will meet you, right? He will still be plowing, and then he will get to the point, he will get to where you are, and you still have not, reaped all the food that was planted, and then he will overtake you. We just keep plowing, and he will ruin the food that just came apart, and then somebody will plant it behind him, and then that's pretty much what it's talking about. So we will have it in abundance, okay? And so, um, yeah. All right, so Deuteronomy 28 verse 4 says, blessed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy ground. The fruit of thy body meaning your children, your descendants. Okay, this shows you that in the kingdom, the souls that are up there in the other dimensions, they are destined to come on earth, right, and give that glory, and they're gonna dwell on earth. The heaven is gonna be that paradise on earth, and the nation of Israel shall rule the other nations. So that's why there will be, for lack of better word, procreation. We will have children, and the promise that the Lord made unto Abraham will finally come to pass, that we shall be as innumerable as the stars of the heaven and as the sands of the sea. Okay, blessed shall be in the city, blessed shall thou be in the city, and blessed shall thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kin, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shall thou be when thou goes out. Okay, and so the Lord Yahweh shall cause thine enemies to rise. This is like it. The Lord Yahweh shall cause thine enemy that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. And how is that going to happen? Let's read about that in the book of Micah, the 5th chapter. So let's see. All right, this is the book of Micah, chapter 5, beginning with verse 1. It says, now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid a siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. But thou, Bethlehem, and then this is pretty much talking about how the Lord, because of our iniquity, the whole book of Micah, the 5th chapter, it begins with him addressing the wickedness of our people. And then he talks about how the Lord is going to bring in a nation. And then he talks about how he was going to redeem us from the nation altogether and establish the kingdom of heaven. This is something that is, it's a cycle. It repeats from a prophet to prophet to prophet. And so it says, now gather yourself, in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid a siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. So at this point, we will try our best to avoid the fate of heathens overcoming us, but it won't work. Okay, that's pretty much what verse 1 is trying to say. Verse 2 says, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little amongst the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose going forth have been of old from everlasting. And so verse 2 is pretty much saying that, in all this, Israel is still going to survive. In fact, it's going to be, in the midst of its downfall and downtroddenness, it's going to produce the Messiah. So that's pretty much what verse 2 is trying to say. Again, there is Israel's iniquity, judgment, and then the hope of that, delivery from that judgment, and then it coming into pass. Verse 3 says, therefore will he give them up until the time that she which travaileth hath brought forth. So he, meaning the Lord, will give us up, and we will be in travail, and we will be at the mercy of these nations. And then it says what? until the time the she which travaileth have brought forth. The she represents the nation of Israel, right? And we travail, meaning we are bringing forth, we are giving birth to the Messiah, meaning the Messiah is going to come out of that nation. It says, then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of what? Of Israel, and he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord Yahweh, in the name of the name, was like it, in the majesty of the name of the Lord Yahweh, his God, and they shall abide. For now shall he be great unto the ends of the world. So when Yahushua comes to the scene and he does what he has to do, it says here, then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. So he's going to gather the remnants that are scattered throughout the four corners of the world. And says, and he shall stand and feed in the strength, right? Let me see. I want to get straight to the point. Yep, still talking about deliverance of Yahushai. So, and this man shall be the peace, verse 5, Micah 5 and 5, and this man shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come into our land, and when he shall tread in our places, then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. And this is talking about the elect, okay? And so, yeah, this is talking about Yahushai, and then the elect. The Assyrians represent America. And I think, yeah, 7 meaning, completion. The word shepherds goes into, I guess it talks about a prophet, right? That's why even Yahushua told Peter, if you love me, feed thy sheep. So the 7 meaning a complete amount, right, of people that the Lord has chosen, and 8, principal men. The 8 just pretty much represents perfection, right? Because you have complete, and then you have beyond that is perfected. Okay, so the principal men, it just pretty much means like. Different translations says commander, but principal pretty much means like strong, right? Strength in many different aspects. Um, let's look at it. Yeah, so the principal it just means a prince or an anointed one. All right. So, and this man Yahushua shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come into our land. The Assyrians, America, right? When they come up against us, and even in the book of Second Ezra, the 15th chapter, when the enemy and even the book of Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, it talks about Jacob's trouble, right? When the enemy shall come in like a flood, he shall be as a man spare none, so on and so forth. So how this applies to our time was that when they come in against us, then Yahushai will come on the scene, because this didn't happen in any time, right? Yahushai didn't, appear and and be the peace when the Assyrians came in. The closest account to this will be during the time of Hezekiah, when they came up against the southern kingdom. The Lord sent an angel, but even that, it wasn't 7 shepherds and it wasn't 8 principal men. He sent 1 angel. So this thing that we're reading here it's a riddle, right, for how the Lord is going to deliver us from the hands of these heathens during this time. So let me read it again. Micah 5 and 5, and this man Yahushua shall be the peace when the Assyrians shall come into our land, and when he shall tread in our palaces. Then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. 7 completion, 8 perfection. Verse 6, and they shall waste the land of the Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod, right, in the entrenches thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrians when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders, right? So back then during Hezekiah's time, they didn't what do you call it? They didn't tread in the palaces. They didn't come close. They were outside the walls, and then the Lord sent 1 angel, and then it destroyed them. Okay, and it didn't even destroy the land of Assyria. So it just destroyed them, and that was when their kingdom went down from there. Okay, there was infighting and so on and so forth, and the kingdom broke apart. Because of skirmishes within the kingdom, and then the Babylonians took over. Right, so. Verse 7 says, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as dew from the Lord Yahweh. So another point here is that the downfall of the Assyrians, it seems to be directly correlated to the transition into the kingdom of heaven. This is why the apostles of Great Millstone always say that you need to have a spiritual eye to be able to read the scriptures. These scholars out here, they go to these theologian cemeteries out there, and they think they know it all, but something as simple as this, they can't even understand what it means. When you ask a scholar what this means, he'll try to go into history and try to prove to you how this came to pass, but no, it didn't. It didn't come to pass. Okay, so it's one of the things where the world is just seriously deficient in, which is the wisdom of the Lord, and that's why even Yahushua said it. Oh Lord, I thank you, and I'm glad that you revealed this unto babies and not those who seem to be wise in their own conceit, in your own mind. Okay, because we are the babes. We got into this with humility. We were humble, but these people go in there, they get the degrees, and they think they know it all. They think they know more than the Most High. They will read the Bible, right? The Bible is very explicit in some things, but then they'll try to come up and establish their own righteousness. It ain't about that. You either believe in the Lord and in the scriptures or you don't. You can't set up a church and say, oh, the Old Testament, we don't follow it anymore. That doesn't make any sense. And you can't say, oh, I'm an Old Testament only person. I don't care about the New Testament. It has to, that's why he said, well, if they speak not according to the law or the prophet, there is no light in them. The law is the Old Testament. The prophet is the books of all the prophets. And so you have to have it all. You have to have it, the entire scriptures. You can't just pick and choose whichever one you want. And so Micah the 5th and 7th chapter, the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as dew. In other words, the Lord he was gonna send us out in the midst of these nations. You're not gonna have a tribe or a kingdom or a country in I guess an uncharted territory that nobody knows, and then they're gonna have their own kingdom that outside the influence of Israel. It's not gonna be like that. Just like how you have when Esau came into power, and then you have the tribes over there in the Amazon, and they've never even seen an Edomite before. They don't know what a freaking a car is or anything. No, no, no. It's not gonna be like that. This time it says that we will be sprinkled as dew. You see a dew? Have you ever gone on the field and after in the morning, it's on every blade of grass. That's what it's talking about. So, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people as a dew from the Lord, as showers upon a grass that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. In other words, we don't compromise with anybody. We don't negotiate with anyone. Because the Lord has given us the spirit and the power and the strength, we will do the will of the Lord. We will enforce righteousness. It ain't gonna be like Esau's kingdom where he always gotta come up with a treaty and negotiate. No, no, fuck all that. All right. It says, and the remnant of Jacob, again, the word remnant is it's thrown around a lot. Remnant, remnant. Why? Because we are reading of the early stages of the kingdom of heaven. And it's always a remnant. You're gonna have Jakes that the Lord has taken out, right? Through Jacob's trouble, famine, the sword, any kind of destruction from natural disasters. You're gonna have them from fall into the hands of wicked men. Wild animals. The book of Revelation, the 6th chapter talks about it. You're gonna have them fall into the missiles. The Lord is gonna get rid of a lot of people, man. So the remnant of Israel, the left, are those who He has bestowed His power upon. And even that, you're gonna have those rebels, right? The scripture says that He shall purge out the rebels from among them. There's a whole lot of things. So when you keep seeing the word remnant, remnant, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about the early stages of the establishment of the kingdom of heaven. This is that 1,000-year rule that's talking about in the book of Revelation. There's going to be 1,000 years where we have to enforce right. We have to change. You see how the world is right now. People, there's been generations of indoctrination that we're going to need 1,000 years to actually kind of purge all that shit out from every single mind of human being on earth. Every single person. And they're going to love that righteousness. So that's the time frame that the Lord has given us. All right. So, and that's why it even talks about they shall rule with Yahushua 1,000 years, because as we're reading here, it talks about Yahushua, right? He that came out of Bethlehem, Ephratah, and he being a peace, and him gathering the remnants, and him spreading us out, right? Like sprinkling us out as dew upon the fields. Verse 6, Micah 5 and 6, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of, Salaki, I already read this. Verse 8, and the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, and as a young lion among the flock of sheep. So it tells you here that the Lord sprinkled us out as dew and showers. But like, why would he do that if it is a time of deliverance? It's because what? We shall be as lions, we shall be in the midst of many people, as a lion amongst the beasts of the forest. The Lord has bestowed upon us what? The power to go out and establish his will upon the earth. All the shit talkers out there, all the people out there who dare the Lord to do what he said to do, all the people out there who want to see proof of the Lord, all these scoffers out there, they're gonna get their wish. They are gonna get their wish. They're gonna when you tell somebody to fear the Lord, they want an explanation. They want a reason as to why they have to do these things. When you tell them, yo, man, being a homo is wrong, being a lesbo is wrong, they want to they don't want to hear any of that because they think they have free will. They need to be educated. So the Lord is gonna have to teach them. You 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 apply for ass whippings, right? Your application is approved. You're gonna go in there, you're gonna sit your ass down. Yeah, don't worry about tuition, it's free. The Lord will teach you. You're gonna get that education that you so crave for. All right. Um, right. So it says, in the midst of many people, as a lion amongst the beasts of the forest, as a young lion amongst the flocks of sheep, who, if he go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thine enemies shall be cut off. A precept to that, I think it's in the book of Psalms, the 45th chapter, where it talks about the king. Let me see. So the book of Psalms, chapter 45, verse 2, it says, thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God has blessed thee forever. It's talking about Yahushai. Gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O most mighty, with thy glory and thy majesty. And in thy majesty ride prosperously because of truth and meekness and righteousness. And thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Right? Thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Thine arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, whereby the people fall under thee. All right. And the scriptures even goes into the book of Psalms, the 80th chapter. Let thine hand be upon the man at thy right hand. It always talks about the hand of the Lord, the hand of the Lord. Okay, so Micah, the 5th chapter, verse verse 9, it says, thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thine enemies shall be cut off. The word cut off means killed, you're put to death. All right, this is it. And that's also one of the reasons why the day of the Lord is going to be terrible, is because of denial. They don't think the Lord is capable of killing. They don't think the Lord is capable like the scriptures made it explicit. That's why there's a huge problem with these these modern people out there who read the Bible. They don't like to go into the fear of the Lord. They always want to make it's a motivational speech. They pick out things in the Bible that makes them feel good. But they don't go into the things that talk about how the Lord can send an angel out and kill children. They don't talk about this. They don't talk about how the Lord can send serpents. That's why it's gonna be worse because they haven't braced for the impact. Yeah, I gotta tell you, brace for the impact. If you brace for the impact, you might survive. You put your head down. There's probably not gonna be any projectile flying in you. But if you're not bracing for impact and you loosen, the impact will snap your spine on your neck. You get whiplash. Okay, you can brace for impact. It's not just something that people just say. It can save your life. Okay, it makes whatever's coming bearable. That's why to know what's coming and to prepare for it is the number one, the most important thing that you ought to be doing with your life right now. The most important thing in your life, your aspirations, shouldn't be to go out and get some big booty bitches and get some money and get some a car, Rolls Royce, whatever it is that you're trying to get a record deal or be an athlete. That's not supposed to be your aspiration in life. It's supposed to be to prepare, to be good. When the Lord finally begins to work, that's supposed to be your number one focus. Because you can't chew on them record deals when in time of famine, or when the Spirit of the Lord has sent out demons around and is plaguing your ass. Scripture, like the scripture says, the richest profit not in the day of judgment. But the people think that that was just some yo. All right, we're gonna see. Like I'm saying, that this is why the establishment of the kingdom of heaven has to be this violent, is because people are stubborn. They respond only to ass whippings. Some people are like that. Micah 5, verse 10. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will cut off thine horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariots, and I will cut off the cities of thy land, and throw down all thy strongholds, and I will cut off witchcrafts out of thine hand, and thou shalt have no more soothsayers. Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee, and thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands. I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee, so will I destroy thy cities. I will execute vengeance in my anger and fury upon the heathens, such as they have not heard. All right. This is going to be a special kind of ass whooping. The plagues of Egypt, some of them are going to come here in the book of Revelation as it foretells, but there are going to be some which we have witnessed, some that have not been in happened in the ancient times, which is like the atomic bombs being dropped, the the planes, the locusts, okay? All these things are relatively new and is not really happening anywhere else in the world. But then there's also the chariot, the UFOs, which is also going to be something. And then there's also going to be the landmass that's destroyed. There's never been an area the size of America that has been on flame, engulfed in flame before. It's never happened in history. This is going to be the time as never before. All right. So when we go back to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, it talks about how, verse 7, and the Lord Yahweh shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. So this is it. This was into the establishment of the kingdom of heaven, linking to the book of Micah, the 5th chapter. The Lord Yahweh shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto, and he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord Yahweh thy God giveth thee. And the word bless, another when you really go into it there, it means to bow, to be bowed down to. So we will be exalted, right? When somebody bows down to him, meaning you are better than them. So when it says that blessed shall thou be in a field or anything like that, it means that whatever we have is going to be better than what anybody else has or anybody else aspires to have. But they will never have it, because no one can work up to become an elect in the kingdom. You do it here and now, or you don't do it at all. You become that principal man, or you're gonna be on that low stature for the rest of your life. This is where the work happens. That's why Howard Shai said that this is where you build. You don't build in the heavens. You don't die, go to the spirit realm and try to be. What are you building? There's nothing there. There's nothing there to prove when you go in front of the Father. What are you gonna try to prove? You're gonna go in there and try to convince him I'm a good person, but how are you gonna prove you're a good person in the heavens? Are you gonna be stronger than an angel? No one needs anything from you in the heavens, and no one will be. You're not gonna be stronger than anybody in the spiritual realm to the point where you can say to the Lord, I could have beat him up, but I didn't. See, I'm a good person. I went out and preached. Everybody in the heavens believe in the Lord. What are you gonna set up camps in the spiritual realm? This is it. This is the only last chance. This is all you have. You were brought here to prove yourself to the Lord, and the Lord is not mocked. So all you people out there that are doing this, who are in this truth, but they're not really into it, or they're in it, if you might be a fucking agent. It doesn't matter, man. You're not trying to deceive us. You're trying to deceive the Lord. You're wasting your time. You might as well just go out there and try to do whatever you got to do, because if you involve yourself in this and you are not on point, you're gonna get it worse than those who did not know and are not down with this. That's why there is no half-assing with the Lord. Lukewarm. It says he's going to spew you out of his mouth if you're lukewarm. So you're either going to be hot for the Lord or you're going to be cold and separate yourself from him. But there is no in between. All right. And so verse 6 says, blessed shall I come in, blessed shall I be when thou comest in, blessed shall I be when thou goes out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies. I already read this. The Lord Yahweh shall establish thee an holy people upon himself, unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord Yahweh thy God, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord Yahweh, and they shall be afraid of thee. Key word, they shall be afraid of thee. This is that redemption, okay? Redemption meaning these centuries of what do you call it? Propaganda that has made Jake to be the bottom of the human species. That's what the Lord is going to reverse. Okay, that whole scientific racism and all this thing and everything that made us the most vile people upon the earth. The Lord is going to reverse that. That's what the true redemption is. True redemption isn't just the fact that you're not a slave anymore, which really you are. You're just a different kind of slave, right? True redemption isn't the fact that you got money and you're rapping now, you're a doctor. No, it's the total reverse of the image of the nation of Israel. It says that you will be feared. You have more. You're gonna have true power. You're not gonna be the product of a system that you have no control over, because that's what pretty much Jake who do well in this place are. You don't control the system. You're just a product of it. You took advantage of the system. So you may be rich, yeah. You may be like Michael Jordan, having billions of dollars. You may be an athlete, and take that money and make it. But you guess what? You're not. You're not blessed. You're not feared. You're not that person, right? Because if like P Diddy, you can have all that money, do the things that you did, they'll have your ass in prison. But have Epstein and his friends do what they did, which is worse than P Diddy, but they're gonna be around here like ain't nothing. They are blessed. P Diddy was not blessed. He has money, but he's not blessed. He has all these record labels because you're nothing. You're not in control of the system that's created. You're just a product of it. So a lot of Jakes get confused thinking they don't need the Lord because they have money, but you do. You need that redemption. This is what it's talking about. Redemption is not being under the thumb or being subjected to other nations. Who was going to go over there? Look at these men out there free, walking around, no, like with impunity, like nothing happened. They tell you, no one even blew the whistle on. They actually came up under and released the files. And what are you going to do about it? You can go up there, protest, write on the sign, release the Epstein files. None of them is getting arrested. They showed you that with this dude who there was a pedophile sting of this dude, the head of the security of the Israeli cyber group or whatever the hell it's called. But he was the head. He caught in a pedophile sting. They took him in, they arrested him, brought him into the interrogation room. He called, he said he wanted a phone call. That very night, his ass left. But then the other people that were caught in the sting, like the black guy who was a pastor, he got caught. That very night, he lost his freedom. He's never seen the daylight again. He's always in prison. So that's what it's talking about. The reason that guy got away from it is because what? He is blessed. The word blessed means to have someone bow to. He's above you. He's not, yo, oh my goodness, man. When will Jake learn? We're like, you gotta learn your fucking place, man. And then, because once you truly learn your place, you're no longer in delusion. You're no longer in denial. Like when Captain Tazariak was like, I'm not oppressed. Like, look at this guy. He doesn't even know, he doesn't even understand the point of captivity. That's why even Moses says it. That the reason you're going to be delivered is when you understand the circumstances of your captivity. Understanding the circumstances of your captivity is part of your deliverance. That's why he says, when you call into remembrance the curses and the blessing, you got to understand the curses. If the Lord is raising you and he's training you, you have to be sensitive to however means he's training you. You got to know, why is this happening to me? Understand? Yo, hey, Tawadi Haba Shai for this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that he's given us, right? The level that the Lord has brought us in, it's unparalleled. No one is on that level in anywhere in the world, from any culture, any religion, any sect whatsoever. The knowledge of the Lord is true, right? And it's made us like a different tier, top tier, race of men. Oh, so so the final verse is verse 12. And the Lord Yahweh shall open unto thee his good treasures, the heavens, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and bless all the work of thine hand, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. You're talking about you made it in society, but you had to borrow money to get an LLC and start up a business, and you got to pay off on that business. You ain't blessed, yo. Verse 13, and the Lord Yahweh shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord Yahweh thy God, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them. All right. So this is it. This is our way of life, to make peace with the Lord, and because we're looking forward to what, a redemption. All right. Let me get it right now. Again, the book of Luke 21. I think I finished up on that. No. Yeah. Let me get to Psalms 21, 121. Right. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 121, verse 1. It says, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord Yahweh, which made the heavens and the earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord Yahweh is thy keeper. The Lord Yahweh is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord Yahweh shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord Yahweh shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. This is our redemption. This is what we're looking forward to. All right. So, we're going to end it with that. In closing, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachakodash, Shalom, Yahweh, Bashem Yashai. To our Yakims and Aquas that are listening in truth and sincerity, may the blessing of blessing be upon our house. And until next time, Shalom.